advise those present at the meeting of the Board of Education of the Pinelands Regional School District in the County of Ocean that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. The notice has been posted in the Board of Education office, junior high school, and high school buildings. The notice was also mailed to the press of Atlantic City and filed with the municipal clerks of Bass River Township, Eagleswood Township, Little Lake Harbor Township, and the Borough of Tuckerton. Roll call, Mr. Brennan.
Mr. Bonnicky. Mrs. Chambers?
Here.
Ms. Sanadell? Mr. Kabricki? Mrs. McVeigh?
Here.
Ms. Palladino?
Here.
Mrs. Pakakua?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
And Mrs. Ernst?
I am here.
We have a quorum.
I would like to have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the matters of negotiations, attorney-client communications, and personnel.
So moved.
How long?
An hour, I think. Won't be
Second.
that long, but maximum an hour.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're in executive at 6:04.
Are we discussing?
everybody. Thank you for coming. The declaration has been read. Roll call has been taken. So would you all please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the loud again.
We're taking it all in.
Reflecting.
Reflecting. That's right, we're
I'm
listening to
getting ahead
every
of
word.
you so you remember the words.
Oh my goodness, he's all fired.
I know,
Oh my
okay,
God.
really.
Get out and get back in.
Do I have to wait to let Brian and
No,
Bill
go ahead,
go?
jump that off.
Well, we need to approve the agenda first. Okay. All right, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the agenda, please, as it stands.
So made.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have an agenda.
We have Mr. Moore and Mr. Costello here this evening, and I'm going to jump forward. Did I get that right, Bill?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to jump forward so that they can make their presentation, kind of update us on construction, and then they can abscond. They've had a long day.
Good evening. Right now, what we got for the list of projects and the completion times and progress is one, the junior high school roof. The last phase of the project was finished on August 10th. And we're at that point, so the complete roofing system is done on the junior high school. The modular complex, right now, we are in final phase of cleanup and with township coded inspections. We're targeting an occupancy of August 27th for the teachers. The athletic fields, we're right on time with scheduling. We're targeting the usage of the tennis courts at the end of September. And the field, we're looking at the aspect of for winter track and for football season next year. The senior high school masonry, as you can tell, we're in the process of still continuing to remove. Scaffolding is up. We're in the process of doing mock panels, and we're on target for schedule as we stand right now. The interior renovations, if you look at the website, you can see the progress we're making on the inside, and we're starting to make color selections and progressing on refinishing the inside. And we're continuing to make the target schedules as we stand.
Any board members have questions?
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right?
We're happy,
Thank you.
which should make you happy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bill, you have anything you'd like to
Thank you,
add?
guys.
No, things are just going very well.
Good.
You noted at the high school, you're kind of in the final phases with color selection? Who's picking colors? Colors for what?
The
Flooring, we're
trim.
talking, or?
Basically, it's just the standard coloring of tile, bathroom finishes and
Okay.
such. That's
Gotcha.
basically what we have.
The dividers in the bathroom.
How would, any idea yet on how we're looking for the gym become?
We're looking to maintain the target completion for January 1st for winter sports at the present time.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you.
Girls and everybody.
Yeah, really. Great job. Okay, moving forward, Steve, you're on.
Oh, okay. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, superintendent's report. Dr. McCooley?
Thank you. I have a few items. I would like to publicly thank Claire Lowe from the Press of Atlantic City for doing a wonderful editorial on Pineland. Some great photos and nice updates and all the progress that's been happening with the construction. It's nice to have some good press. As Brian has said, we've been busy with construction, and I just want to add a side note on that. things are going to happen, as with any construction projects, just as if we're doing construction in our homes. So I know recently, we did have a couple snafus last week where one of the cement trucks ran into a telephone line and that had to be repaired, and it was. And then we had our American Athletic was doing their work as they should. They were trying to remove a portion of the curb, which they had to do, and hit a gas line. And the gas line was here immediately. It was fixed within the hour, and everything was fine. I know that some people get alerts about when the gas company's called. That appeared on Facebook, and some of the comments were not as positive as I would like. But I just want to reiterate that these are just normal issues that we have with construction. They're dealt with immediately. Our facilities manager, Brian, and his group are amazing. So we are going to move forward in a positive way and know that things will happen. Negotiations are underway. I want to thank the board for all their time they're putting into it. I want to thank Mel for the time he's been dealing with me. And we're moving along with that. I would like to thank Amy and Will from Cooper Levinston for doing a wonderful presentation the other night, and for the board for being interactive and really asking some great questions. We have tours of the TCUs and the junior high scheduled for August 28th, 6 o'clock, and then August 30th. They're at various times throughout the school day, so you can check on the website for that. And the last thing is, Friday, I will not be in district, so my update has been started. It may be a little late Friday evening, maybe Saturday morning, just so you know. All right, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Liz. We'll miss that at a break.
I know you will.
All right, moving to presentations, Miss Kenny. Mrs. Kenny's gonna do our HIB.
Good evening, everyone. Every year we present the HIB grade on the overhead in front of us. Into a quick look. So the New Jersey Department of Education requires each school to evaluate their system regarding HIB, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and what they're doing for different areas of it. This has been our 4th year that we're required to evaluate our system. First of all, when you look at it, please realize that the State Department, the highest score you can receive is a 78 on their grading scale, which is a little strange. Normally we're used to 1 to 100. So the highest you can receive is a 78, and you score yourself. So no school really is perfect, so you really shouldn't give yourself a perfect score, because each year you should look and say, what do I need to work on, or what can we improve on to make our school a better and safe environment. So throughout the 4 years that we've been doing this in high school, you can see our score has steadily increased, and as well as in the junior high school. And what you do is the group of people that need to fill out this form has to be a member of the community. You have to have your assistant principals, the SRO, you have to have the school nurse, you have to have the school bullying specialist. In the junior high, it's Melissa Thompson, and in the high school, it's Joanne Fella, and both building principals. You look over all of the incidents that occurred during the year, and you decide if there's any patterns or areas of concern within the building, and you also review the policies and procedures to make sure that we are adhering to them. So each year when we do this, as you can see with our scoring, we're excellent with our HIB reporting. We always make sure that we are always on task with our time frames and everything that we need to do. But we're always looking for better programs and better ways to reach students, staff, parents, their community, as well as all different types of employees that work for us to make sure that everyone has an eye out, because there's a lot of information you can find. The cafeteria workers can help us a lot as well in making sure that things are not happening that should not be. So this self-assessment gets reported to the state. The state then returns with the 76 on both, and they list it. We have to publish it on our school website. It's a yearly process, and then it also has to, there's a state discipline report that we have to put in, and it has to match that the incidents that you said occurred for bullying in your school district matches. So it's also, a little cross-check as well. So if anyone has any questions about this, it's our yearly compliance, but it's something that needs to be publicly reported on. And as I said, the highest you can receive is a 78. So when people start seeing a 70s, they start panicking. But the highest is a 78, and no one's perfect. So thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the teams, the actual committee, and I probably have asked this question in regard to other things, how much effort, or has there been any effort, or maybe we just don't get any answers? We have a tendency to use
Staff members as
staff
committee
members as parents, and I'm not sure, because I don't sit on this committee, I'm not really sure then if we are truly getting an outsider's point of view.
The problem with this committee of using an outsider is that as soon as you review any of the reports that are occurring, they have to leave because it's confidential information. So at that point, you're not able to really explore and look at the cases that are occurring. So as soon as we said, okay, here are all the cases, so they really wouldn't be able to analyze the actual cases that are occurring because it's confidential information.
So is that done all the way across all the schools?
So it depends on which school, like different schools, how they handle it. I mean, we really try to put every single case on the spreadsheet and say, this is what has happened, and really try to have a real honest conversation. Is it in the cafeteria? Is it in the area of the locker room? Is it, you know, should we provide more supervision? So we do ask for parent volunteers, but we definitely, when we get to that point of that conversation, it does become a little complicated because of the confidentiality of the victim as well as.
Right, okay, but, and I guess this is a question for our attorney. Would it work if we simply redact the names of the students?
Well, the problem is within all the reports
Right.
are all the students' statements. So they all have to fill in what they heard,
Okay,
what
so
they
that
said.
would be very telling, I guess.
Yes.
Well, it's all supposed to be initials. Would it work if, as we're doing with other things, if we used a teaching staff member from Little Egg, who's also a parent, and then they could utilize somebody from us
Well, the
that's,
same
It would still
problem
be
would apply,
confidential
I guess.
information.
Yeah,
And even initials have to be redacted.
And all these documents have to be maintained for records forever. So-
right,
There's no
okay.
policy stating that the parent can't be a teacher.
Correct, correct.
Right.
And Karen, programs, when you say 14 or 15, like, is that?
The highest you can have is a 15.
It's four.
Oh, that's just the score?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
so
just the
is it
score.
one program? And
No, there's multiple programs every
Okay.
single month that we are trying to do different things. And you're trying to do it across the board. You're doing it in the curriculum, you're doing it throughout the Character Counts program. School Base is working on a few things, Child Study Team. And you have to analyze and list all the programs that you're doing and put all that in the information that goes to the State Department to say these are the things that we're working on. You're doing assemblies that are addressing, making good decisions and things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Okay, our next is Mr. Lupo and Ms. Frasca, and this is relative to our hiring process, or I guess I need to move again.
Good evening, everyone. This has been something that a couple board members have had questions about in the past, and we just wanted to share with you tonight some of the work that we've been doing on the hiring process and making sure that it is consistent and making sure that we're all following the same kind of protocols. I know that you recently had an ethics training, and I know Will and Amy really focused on the guidelines, and so we're really just focusing on the consistency factor. So I went back to school, and this is one of the projects that I worked on. I figured let's do a project on something that, you know, we need some attention to. And, you know, that was something that I've kind of been wanting to focus on. Working at Little Lake Harbor, in my beginning of my teaching career, the hiring process was very different than here at Pineland. So really I wanted to kind of get us up to speed with some of the things that other districts are doing. So Anthony is here too as the association representation. Mel was also on the committee. So we're just gonna go, I know we don't have a clicker. So these were some of the questions we had when we began this process. And we did have a committee, and I'll let Anthony talk about that. But we talked about standardizing the hiring process to ensure that all administrators recommended the best candidate. And I think that's where the board was focused, making sure that we have the best candidate. Does standardizing the hiring process lead to a greater shared vision of the staff at Pinelands Regional? Does standardizing the hiring process lead to increased student learning? And what elements should be included in the teacher hiring process, and why? So these were kind of like our driving questions that we had. Yeah.
Okay, so when we first got together back in December, one of the things that we were looking at was trying to get different stakeholders that were involved in either the hiring process or in the actual teaching process, because one of the focuses was teaching. So if you notice, the majority of the names up there are from our administration, and I was lucky enough to participate, as was Mr. Reed, as the union representation.
Mr. Reed said to me one day, you know, you hire these people and then I have to deal with them.
You told me my people were a problem, but you
So-
hired the people.
So we
They were my
really
people.
wanted that whole shared buy-in piece, and it was really important for us to have them a part of it. Because they're not only part of our team, but they're part of the PA team, and you know, it was something that really stuck in my brain, like, you know what, they really should be part of this. And you know, we really went through a great process. So the first thing we did, and I'm sure people in the committee remember this, we said, what does a good candidate look like? And we worked backwards, and we tried to talk about what a top candidate would look like. They would be a good communicator, compassionate, passionate, empathetic, confident, courageous, and so on and so on. So we kind of brainstormed that because we wanted to focus on the end game. What are we looking for? And then kind of work backwards from there. And then I actually asked some students for the same kind of feedback. What do you want when we hire teachers? What should we look for? You know, and I explained the process to them. And these were some of the responses we got, which I thought I really wanted to share with you because I thought they were very interesting. Self-awareness, and that one really stuck out to me. Understanding how they kind of come across to the student. Flexibility, which all students really appreciate, and a high level of content knowledge. So, you know, we did get some student feedback as we went through the process, and I thought that was really important to always include the students.
Okay, so one of the things that we did during one of the early meetings that we had was just to kind of get a grasp on what we want this process to look like going forward. So if you notice up there, we have 6 bullets, okay, starting very early on from the vacancy posting, and then running itself all the way through with the meeting with the superintendent. But we thought that each of these 6 targeted elements were extremely important to the process, especially towards standardizing what our process would look like.
So the first piece here, and I just want to really drive home the piece that we're trying to go paperless in this whole process. Because, you know, we have like piles and piles of resumes, and when we're doing these kinds of things, it's like, oh, here are the resumes, and we're kind of like passing them around, and really we're trying to make an effort to make this all paperless. I know that we approved Talent Ed as a vendor that will help us to make everything paperless. So all of these things, you know, we haven't had the training on it yet, so we don't really know exactly how it's going to fit into all of these steps that we need to take. But you'll see Talent Ed is in some of these slides. So again, first we're going to fill out the personnel action form, hopefully online, and send it in so that it could be posted. We have to really focus on certifications. That's something that we have to make sure that the person has the correct certifications for the position that we are posting for. And we're really making an effort to make sure that that person, you know, has the right credentials. And here are just some questions that we want to ask. How does this position accomplish goals of the district? What certifications? We want to always go back to our approved job description that you have all seen, making sure that we're grounded in what we were looking for in this candidate. And we had some discussion about posting in multiple places, making sure we really have a wide net so that we can get the best candidates. We don't always have a lot of candidates, depending on what position it is, especially with the special ed, very specific positions. We need to really get it out there a little bit better. We talked about Facebook, we talked about other recruiting methods for that.
Okay, so the screening process. Like Gina said, we get piles and piles of resumes for some of these positions. Okay, so we found that it would be important to develop a committee, a small group of people of various different stakeholders who would take part in sifting through these resumes and trying to figure out who the best candidates are, because we expect excellence in this district. And that starts very early on in this process. And then a couple of the things that we identified were, obviously there will be people that we will choose to interview. And at the end of those interviews, we feel that it's a good step forward to send thank you letters, even to those who do not receive a call back and who are not going to be considered going forward. Just to show appreciation, because although they may be applying for a position at the present time, we don't want to preclude them from applying for a position in the future.
I have a real passion for this slide because I know that in the past we haven't been great at making sure our committee was a solid committee, that it had a lot of different people on it, that the people stayed on the committee. We are making commitment that if you are on this interview committee for this position, then you stay on that committee. So no matter what, if you have 25 interviews and it takes 4 days, you have to be at every single one. And you have to create these norms and make sure that everybody is in full understanding that once you're part of this process, you need to stay. I mean, if there's a reason why they can't be part of all of the interviews, then they would have to excuse themselves. Because they just cannot make that, they can't use the rubric, they can't really compare the candidates and things like that. So we've really kind of cracked down on that, making sure that everyone who's on that committee knows, okay, you're gonna be here for this many interviews, and make it really clear. Again, does Talent Ed have a piece in this? Do they have questions already formulated that we could choose from, a bank of questions? We feel that it's really important, our committee felt that every time we hire, we should review the hiring process. We should go over it again and just remind ourselves what steps do we need to follow and making sure that we are following it. I also think that every summer we should reevaluate this and look at laws and different things that may have changed to make sure that we're following all of those things. The interview questions would be established with this group, and also the scoring rubric needs to be developed and consistent with other rubrics that we've used in other positions.
So the first round, the initial round, the candidate is brought in, the candidates are brought in. This is our larger pool of candidates that we've chosen now to interview from the resumes we've received. And again, it's a committee that's made up of PEA members, sometimes a content specialist. The content specialist is going to be a PEA member since we're all inclusive right now in this district. Again, we use the same questions over and over again. We don't want to give anyone an unfair advantage with an easier question or a harder question for that matter. And then the rubric. The rubric is so important because it's scored holistically. Basically what that means is that the candidate is scored against the rubric and not against anyone else. Okay? And that's an educational idea. It's been around for quite a number of years now, but it allows the individual to stand on their own 2 feet rather than being pitted against other individuals. And at the end of this process, we would hope to have 3 to 4 finalists selected to move on to the next round.
Round 2, and this is something that we have done, but we want to be consistent and do it every single time, if we could, unless it was an emergency and we didn't have time. The model lesson, I think it's one of the most important pieces to the whole process. We've been doing a better job with it through some recent hires. So we would set up the model lesson, and we try to make it really authentic. So let's just say a teacher's retiring in January. We try to have the candidates go into that particular class and teach those students that they would be teaching. So that's been really kind of enlightening, and the students give us feedback when they leave. We really like that they called us by name, we really like the activity that they brought in, and we also included teachers in the process. So we had a teacher that it was gonna be her ICS teacher, and she was there as well and gave feedback. So again, bringing the students, bringing in staff members, it's been really an important piece to this. We said we don't really want to use Marzano per se, that's our evaluation tool, because it's just too cumbersome. Just maybe the walkthrough tool and looking for just a few elements. Obviously clarity, making sure that the students are engaged, those kind of things. And also keeping really, really detailed notes so that Melissa could share them if that is the final candidate. And again, using Talent Ed to upload all of that information and keep everything transparent.
Okay, so when we get to the third round, there's quite a bit of information up on this slide. But basically what we're saying is that we're going to have 2 candidates at this point in time. And those 2 candidates are going to meet with Dr. McCooley, okay? And at that point in time, she will do her own interview, conduct her own interview with them. And she'll also be privy to what's been put into Talent Ed. so that she can see all of our notes along the way and have a much fuller view of these candidates as they walk through the door. Again, the documents we hope will be available paperless, okay, since that's the direction that we're trying to move here. And along with that detailed summary, excuse me, along with that detailed summary, again, this holistic idea of what our candidates are, going back to what the rubric was. So what we tried to do is align this process all throughout so that one piece hands off to the next piece seamlessly. Once a candidate is selected by Dr. McCooley, the process would then come to you guys where the recommendation would be made, and then our applicant would complete the criminal history and any other documentation that needs to be done prior to hiring and voting. And yeah, I think I got everything on that side.
I have a question, at the end, or? Yeah?
Sure.
So with regard to your phase 3, the meeting with the superintendent, so the superintendent will have the full notes from the interview
Yes,
team.
everything.
Would you envision the committee making a recommendation at that point, or just truly it's transparent that the superintendent has all the notes and it's her call for?
Last 2 candidates to Dr. McCooley. So, I mean, I'm sure that if it's a tie or if she feels that the 2 candidates are close, I'm sure she would come to the committee to say, hey, okay, so, I don't see that
spend
being.
more time with the
Right.
individuals is what
But
I'm
I'm hoping that it's kind of a glaring process where,
Is it
there's usually
obvious
something
candidate?
that sets
Stands out?
the one person apart. But I think it's really important for you to have the information of why that person was the top candidate and making sure that's a detail for you.
Can I just add on to that? It's also important too that Dr. McCooley is a graduate of Pinelands. She knows what the culture is like here. She understands that. We're hoping that going through the process, getting to those last 2, that person that is glaringly obvious at that point is someone that we can then welcome right into our community, who's going to fit seamlessly with us and be off and running from day one.
Thank you.
So the next steps, we need to look at the data. When we're hiring people, what does that tell us? Are we making good decisions? Are our students learning? Looking at the rates of them staying with us. If they're leaving, talk to them about why they're leaving, and I know that you guys touched on that a little bit as well. And find out, if this process is really, truly working. And also, we have some more next steps, that this process can be applied to the hiring of all other staff members. For example, support staff, administration, custodial staff, maintenance, all of that. So, and I've talked to John Ballone and James Bond about coming up with a very similar system that they can just kind of plug in, what would it look like for their departments. So getting some consistency across the board, across the whole district. And then also asking ourselves, the teachers that were very successful in the interview process, but were not successful when they got here. Why? Why did that happen? But again, when Dr. McCooley, knowing the district, knowing the students, I think that we're just getting better at it. Lots of reflection along the way. And I really wanted to, drive home the transparency factor. We want to make sure that you have all the documentation that you need, that Dr. McCooley has everything so that she can confidently recommend the best candidate for our teaching staff and for our students. And that's really all. And we feel that this is a very, very important task. It's something that we have to do our due diligence with, and we have to make sure that we have the best for our students. So we're really passionate about it. And I thank everybody from the committee for all their work, because I think we had a lot of meetings. And last year was a really tough year, but we kind of plugged along. And I know that you had some questions, but we got through it. And Dr. Banks was involved with it, and Dr. McCooley, we caught her up to speed with everything. So I think we're in pretty good shape. It's still in draft form, and it's always going to be revised, as we move forward. We do have folders for you.
One more slide.
And this is just time spent on hiring, is time well spent. We have some folders. There's a couple, there's an actual checklist with all of the process in it, so you can look at that. You can also look at, Tom, can I steal this a second?
Yes,
There's
ma'am.
only a couple of things in here. This is the actual, what we just went over, the process. Back here is the actual form that we fill out right now. We're hoping to make this go paperless. You probably have seen this one before. This is with the final candidate, the final recommendation. And then these two forms here, Marianne Friedman actually gave these to me and said, New Jersey School Boards recommends, these are the questions that board members can ask about hiring. And I started with this when we actually started our whole process. And that's how we kind of came up with, you know, all of the different pieces. And that's it.
Gina, has the committee come up with are you working on the rubric? Is that done? Is it?
We have a rubric that we've used.
Okay.
Every time a candidate, a position is posted, we reevaluate that, depending
Okay.
on what our goals are. Like this year, we may ask a question about attendance. How are you gonna get your kids to come to class?
Right.
So, you know, it's always gonna be evolving, but it has to be consistent. Like we're hoping that all the rubrics have a 5-point scale.
Right.
We may say that these 5 questions, everyone needs to ask these. Maybe English teachers have to answer these, but, you know, so
Right,
there's
okay.
always a little bit of movement, but we've been better. I mean, you're seeing it, Dr. McCoy, from your seat. Is that something that we need to work on?
I don't think that's the piece that's missing. I think it's more, we have to make sure that all of the process is followed. And step one is really those certifications. And that person that we're getting to be part of our school community can do multiple things. So I think that, you know, the job that they've done has been wonderful, and it's really streamlined it. And so everyone, that whether you're hiring a phys ed position or an in-class support teacher, that you go through this process.
I want to thank the committee. Obviously, you put, you know, a great deal of work into this. It's appreciated.
I think Pat has a question.
Sure.
Sorry, kind of moving back here. Anyway, yes, excellent presentation. Thank you for the folder with all the resource materials. I was just wondering, is there any way that all of this could be scanned into our board drive in a file or a separate category under our left-hand side?
We have a team drive that we've been
Okay.
working through. So I could share the team drive maybe with Kelly, and
Mhm.
she can then, I mean,
That'd be fine, because you
That way,
could,
yeah,
I have
because
a-
I mean, when we go
things.
into like committee reports and things like that, budget,
we
whatever
have
it is.
everything. We have
Is there something that maybe we can have a folder with
Sure.
hiring process?
every,
Yes.
yeah, no
I mean,
problem.
it's great, thank
That's
you for
easy.
taking this out, but, I mean, I have to.
And the
admit,
slides.
and the
will
PowerPoint we
include-
could put in there
Sure,
too.
no problem.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sometimes I
Awesome.
can't put my finger on it, maybe 4 months from
No,
now. And if it's
absolutely.
on the drive, on a file there, I'm more apt to find it quicker than I'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
able to find it.
Not a problem at
Yeah.
all.
I think
That's-
especially helpful for the board members that can be here
Yeah.
tonight, and then they have some interest too, so it's out there that they can see and recognize the
And you
work that
should
you've
see
done.
changes too, like coming
Well,
to you
additional, and
with.
when you create the rubric, I would think that was great to put in there.
And we can't give you the questions.
No, we
No,
understand that.
absolutely not. We don't want
We know that good, but no, it's hard.
Okay.
No, it's.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job.
And we keep changing them anyway, because again, our goals change, you know, our focus changes, and, you know, it's not always gonna be the same for different positions. But we have a whole team drive. I'll talk to Dr. McCoy and see what she actually wants from our drive, because we have every agenda, every set of minutes that we had from our group. I mean, a million different resources from that drive,
Yeah, that's
so
no problem.
whatever you need.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
One
Appreciate it.
I think Kim has a
Yeah,
The mentoring program?
Yes.
Where you were talking about the introduction, then, is that something that you actually talk to them about? I mean, is that something
I
that's
think
a
after
positive?
that was another
once we
thing.
have it?
Yeah. We did, actually, James Bond and I met today about the onboarding process. We're trying to clean up onboarding, which means when someone's hired, okay, now they're board approved, and then now there's a list of things, and now with all of the technology, the list is really long of all of the things that have to happen. They need passwords to this, they need to be in this group, they need their health form done. And we want to get really consistent with that, because sometimes they miss something and they don't get emails or whatever, so we're working on that. But part of the onboarding was make sure they get a mentor and then start that ball rolling. So that was Dr. Stevenson. They would have to see her, and even for teachers that we hire that they have experience, they're still non-tenured, so they still need to get a mentor. It's more of an informal mentor, and then the induction process would then start for the first 4
they
years.
get paired up with a peer mentor, but then they also are gonna be meeting with an administrator. So the first year teachers are assigned an administrator, second, third, and fourth, then they're gonna do a presentation at the end of that 4th year.
I'd just like to thank you all for your time and attention to this matter. to ensure that we have consistency and continuity in the hiring process within Pinelands Regional to assure we get the best candidate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. NutriServe. Are you using this too?
Yes, good week.
Okay, I'll just move it.
Save everybody the trip, sitting down and going back up.
Oh.
Scoot around here.
So first, we'd just like to thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to present tonight. Karen, unfortunately, she was planning to be here. She rolled her ankle this weekend and is not walking well, so Tina and I are here to present. The presentation that we put together today, we just called it Making Lemonade Out of Lemons. Sorry. So really, I just want to establish a little bit of a baseline what we did in 2016-17. We reorganized the entire school district, restructured and retrained all union staff to NutriServe standards, revamped serving lines to best suit the block schedule, prepared and purchased food service equipment, replaced units not working, gained trust and respect from the union team members, forged excellent relationships within the district, accommodated any and all district requests, became members of the school wellness committee, became members of the school safety committee, and also helped to implement with Angie, a special education student life teacher with, in the kitchen for the past 2 years. The tasks ranging from portioning sliced fruit, bagging bagels, and responsibilities grew to one student making homemade meatballs with our staff. So this was kind of just a little bit of the baseline just to see some of the behind the scenes work that happened before 17-18.
So you all know that this past year has been really interesting for the entire school district. So in anticipation of the split schedule that was going to be happening, the high school team and myself, we packed up all the food from the high school kitchen and supplies and we moved it to the junior school, along with additional kitchen equipment in preparation for the split sessions. So this was really a well-coordinated team effort with all the team members. So 5 days from the move, adjustments were made for continuing quality improvement. Split sessions, what we did at the junior school this year to accommodate all the students because they had 2 different set times, we opened our breakfast line at 7 a.m. and we continue to serve lunch throughout the day until 3 p.m. to accommodate the students. So that way when they had the passing of the bell schedule, they could pop into the cafeteria, get something to eat, and take it back to the classroom. We added additional serving lines for the split sessions. Unfortunately, we did have to do a voluntary layoff for the staff. So we had 3 people that volunteered to take a temporary leave. We kept as many people employed as possible. We had to adjust team members' hours, and we made all the food items grab and go for convenience. So we actually included all the meal components inside the package. To accommodate the teachers, which was very tough for them as well, I sent out an order form so they could pre-order their food, email me in the morning, and they would come pick it up and it would be ready for them.
So then January 23rd, we returned to the high school. We were informed that the lunch would be reduced from 1 hour to a half hour for the remainder of the year. Made service line adjustments to accommodate, reduced the lunch schedule. I really need to compliment Tina in just managing this with her staff. This is quite a shortened time period. Again, it didn't just try to say, okay, we're just going to make it work with what we had. Realized we needed to make a few adjustments, reduce some of the lines, the time-sensitive just scheduling. We got very positive feedback received from the building principal for the fast-moving lines. That's right. We were able to feed the students within the first 15 to 20 minutes, which still gave them another 15 minutes to at least enjoy in that period. The deli line started taking pre-orders for the students to cut out wait time. There's a tremendous popularity with the deli here at Pinelands Region. So again, in Tina recognizing that, enhancing that station, just that's what everybody wants. We're going to make 2 serving stations. And then we were able to provide a hot meal daily, even with the challenging circumstances for the 17th school year.
Okay, all of our staff was working as a team this year, and it really had a heightened sense of urgency because we knew, particularly at the high school, that we had to feed all the students within the 30 minutes. And it was so great to see them come together and work together so hard and diligently to make sure that our children were taken care of. Once again, there was a reduction of staff hours while remaining compliant with the union collective bargaining agreement. So I have to say kudos to our entire team because I think they did an amazing job and they're perfect for our community. All right, so the beginning of June, we knew that we were shutting down our school for the entire school year. So we started packing up the kitchen, wrapping up everything for the 17-18 school year in preparation of consolidation of 2 schools for next year. This was quite an undertaking, and again, we could not have done it without our team members. So I've been coordinating with the buildings and grounds to move kitchen equipment, serving line stations to be installed in the cafeteria at the junior school. We're adding a second full-service deli station. We brought over point-of-sale stations, additional workstations, coolers, mortars. This summer, I've worked with the architect, the electrician, John Balone, and the building principals to make sure that everything is going to be in place for the upcoming school year. Okay, so this year we did a really neat tasting at Tuckerton Elementary, and we made a video, and I'd really like to play it for you. It's about a 5-minute video, but I think you'll...
It's on that same file.
This is part of the nutrition education that we do at all the elementary schools, but the one in Tuckerton was really neat, and we had a really good time.
Hey everyone, we are at Tuckerton Elementary School and we are doing a fun nutrition activity today and a food tasting. Let's go.
Today, we'll be joining with our young kids and our older kids as well. Each group gets a different activity. The younger kids will be learning about what's in the 5 main food groups using the balloons for a balanced lunch, while the older kids will be making their own school lunches. Looks like they're learning a lot and having some fun as well. Now it's time to test some lunches.
Now we're moving on to the taste testing. Let's see what kinds of foods the kids will be tasting.
Well, today it looks like we'll be serving salad. Our first dish is a spinach salad that has diced eggs, tomato, parsley, turkey bacon, and is topped with a raspberry vinaigrette. The second salad is a quinoa salad. Quinoa is a high-protein grain from South America. The salad also has cucumbers, onions, and tomatoes to give it some flavor. It all looks pretty tasty, but it'll be up to our judges to make the final call. Let's bring out the samples. Okay, not the best first impression. But after a very long standoff, we finally get our first few brave souls. Sheesh, tough crowd. Sadly, we got similar results from the rest of our panel of judges. Still, it doesn't look all bad. It looks like some of the kids enjoyed the salad. Maybe even a little. So with our picky judges giving their critique, it's time to go to our group vote.
So the rules are simple. Each kid tries the food and gives an opinion of what they think. Yum if they loved it, if it was okay, thumbs down if they didn't like it at all.
Using the highly accurate thumbs up, thumbs down method, we're able to calculate the results for both dishes. Oh boy, this might take a while. All right, well after much deliberation, we're ready to reveal what the judges thought.
Wow, it really looks like the kids like their vegetables today. Now we won't have to sneak them onto their plates anymore.
Sure, there may have been a few picky eaters, but overall, both salads were given the seal of approval. And at the end of the day, it was a fun and tasty experience.
What a great day. We hope you had as much fun as we did. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
So, thank you very much for letting us play that. That is part of what we love to do, nutrition education. This is a great opportunity just to get with our kids, the students, hear what they like to have them actually try it. You are one of 2 schools within NutriServe that's had this. The person that was running that is Kristen Miller. She's our corporate dietitian. And the other school has it running on a loop on their TVs. And when she came back to visit a couple months later, some of the students were coming up and saying, "Oh, you're the celebrity that did the," because they see it on the TV on the show. So it was really just a cute opportunity for us to partner. And that's really what, the one thing that we wanted to get across tonight is we really feel like there's been a really great partnership with Highland Regional and NutriServe. And we want to do everything we possibly can to get to a break even. And we're going to do that. With the circumstances that are coming up, the uncertainty, that's one of the reasons in talking with Steve that we said that we would be able to do the subsidy of $60,000. But Tina and I had conversations all summer. You know, we want to get you as close to the break even, if not better. That's our goal.
I feel this year too, with having 4 full lunches at the junior school, I think it's going to make a big difference. I think we're going to be able to feed a lot more children, and more children will have time to eat. Because I know during the split sessions, even when we went back to our block schedule, the children were deciding, like, well, do I want to go eat or do I want to go to an activity? But I have a very positive outlook for the school year. I think with the 4 full lunches, I think we're going to make some really good strides.
I have a question. You know, I know that this past year was certainly a little strange, but if I remember correctly, when both schools were operating, we were still running at a loss. Is this guaranteed loss like this year, it's projected to be 60 grand? Is that normal for a 7 through 12 district? Is that?
We do see some. There are some other larger high schools that are in a similar situation.
Right.
I can think of two right now that are, I'm having this very same conversation.
So when those things happen, what type of adjustments do you make?
At that point, it's either, so the one that I know of in particular has an open campus with multiple restaurant options within a minute's drive. That's really difficult. That's not something they want to change. That's unique to where they are. But in another situation, I know that that's the way it was. They closed the campus, completely changed the dynamics. It's just, they're not going anywhere. They want to eat. They can't leave. We get the opportunity to feed them. So a lot of it depends on either changing some of those particulars in the program, adjustments, or it means to reduce service options. Personally, I really don't like doing that. Just limits any opportunities that the students have as far as offerings. So a lot of it has to do with what can we do within the confines of the area that we have to work with. I've had many opportunities where we needed to bring an option over on the other side of the school, just because the students didn't want to come over. It was a 5-minute walk all the way over. Again, a half-hour lunch period. They want to have to walk all the way over. It's 20 minutes just to walk, get in line, get back. Leaves them no time, so they just hung out at the other end. So we just set up, you know, over there. So a lot of it is kind of to see how it plays out once we get in it and see what adjustments we can make. Sometimes it's an enhancement. Other times the best move is to say, what areas can we cut?
What is the process with our kids leaving campus? That will not happen this year, correct? Like our seniors, our juniors, they'll still be allowed to leave.
Well, the only seniors can drive.
Right.
So we're minimizing the amount of cars that we have here to begin with.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a question, if I may. That guaranteed loss of $60,000, whose guaranteed loss is that? Is that your guaranteed loss, or is that, I read that as our guaranteed loss.
It's
Our loss.
It's ours.
And that's our guaranteed loss after we pay you that's in consideration of our payment to you for the management fee, correct?
Yeah, you boil it down to what the profit and loss is at the end of the year. If it exceeds the $60,000 loss, let's say there was an $80,000 loss, they would return $20,000 of their management fee to us.
Okay, and that guaranteed loss, when that was developed, contemplates us being back to one building next year, for the full year?
Yes.
I have a question. On one of your beginning slides, you mentioned the school wellness committee. Who's part of that from the buildings?
Joanne Sofield, Sarah Irwin, Darren Hickley sat on that, myself, and a few of the other teachers. I don't have the names off the top of my head.
I've sat on the committee too.
Okay.
In the past, yeah.
All right, so I guess that changes from, I guess, who's available. So that's the committee. Is there a school wellness coordinator?
Darren.
I think it is Darren Hickley.
It's in policy.
Oh, I know it is, yeah, oh, I know it is, but we've never designated who was on the committee or who was the coordinator in the policy committee, so I was just wondering who was doing it.
We only met once or twice last year with the confusion of the school district, but I believe that we'll be meeting more often this upcoming year.
And I'm assuming that the discussion with the loss and some of the ideas or what you're doing, I'm assuming is discussed amongst the committee since they know the school and the students?
With the wellness committee, that has not been brought up. Like I said, we only met once or twice this year. The previous school year, we met on a more regular basis. But it's definitely something that can be addressed with the committee.
Thanks.
So what, I'm sorry, if I could just circle back to
Go
my
ahead.
question about the guaranteed loss, how is that determined? Like, who sets that threshold? Why is it 60 and not 20? Or 100?
We look at the previous year's financial statement of what we did for 17-18.
For the lunch meals?
And that was a total of 121,000 loss. And then I factored in, we did have a significant amount of equipment repairs and equipment purchases that I took off of that, because that is not part of our contract. So those were costs in addition to what we do for our program. So that's why I reduced that 120 took that off. So just from an operating standpoint, very comfortable being at that minus 60. Again, I think with having the 4 lunch periods, we have a little increased pricing. That came out after the fact.
Anybody else have questions? Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to let Dr. McCooley, because I keep worrying about Brian back there, run through items on the work session.
I will be brief too. If you have any questions, please just jump in. Thank you for the feedback on the miracles, for those of you that did. I did get some feedback from Daryl Minus-Vincent from Burlington County, and he just had me add some additional information. So thank you for the feedback on those. The district goals, I did attach the slide. I did get some feedback from you as well on those, made some revisions. And you can see I did share the document with you. What I added to the right was just some more information on the notes section in regards to how many total absences we had, and that we allowed for 20 absences this past year, and we're only going to allow for 16 in the upcoming school year. Just going back to the agenda, excuse me.
And that will be well communicated to students,
Yes.
parents, and...
It's going to be discussed initially for the first time when the parents do the tour of the TCUs, and then it's going to be sent home in the handbook, addressed with all of the students by the principals, and at back to school night.
It's already been sent out by the principals to all the parents of students at Pine Lanes.
Good. Let's see, policy 7243, I wanted just to bring this up as the board of the whole, because I am suggesting that we alter this policy to be more consistent and aligned with some other school districts that have this policy. We can put it as a first revision for next month if you're in agreement with this. So right now, our policy 7243 of supervision of construction, the last update on this was 2008, and it has me directly supervising all building construction, when typically this is the business administrator. In some cases, as with Little Legs, which is a little outdated as well, it's the architect, but that could change depending on who our architect of record is, so I would suggest to keep this consistent and along the lines of 18A 17-28, we alter this to have the building and the BA overseeing this construction
Is
and
that
building
18A,
projects.
is that is the statute?
Law.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
And really, Steve is doing this already, like things like change orders and so forth, he's doing this now. So just memorializing this in our policy. So any issues with a revision of this going out for first reading next month? Okay, thank you. Brian already gave us a construction update, thank you so much, and board forum.
Anybody?
Nothing at this time.
On the miracles, I didn't give it to you. Can I just talk about it real quick?
Sure.
Because of all my tech problems I started about earlier. I just have my email here.
Maybe while you're looking it up, do you just want to quickly state one of them, the two for Pine Lanes, one is focused on
Sure, Karen.
improving attendance?
The qualitative goal is creating more programs for students, all students. And the quantitative one is the attendance one.
So everybody can miss.
Yes.
I know it's on, basically, it was more of a question of how you're approaching absenteeism. I think I have it. I know we're doing a 10% goal total, but I was wondering if you're looking at different levels of student attendance, as in different sets of students, so not just the kids that are missing a huge amount.
Yes.
But like, are there gonna be different subgroups where you're gonna come up with plans for, like, even the kids that are missing 1 or 2 a quarter, where they're just staying home? with
So
no
I don't
homework?
want to confuse, the district goal is to reduce
Okay.
chronic absenteeism by 10%.
Okay.
My merit goal is a lot more in-depth, and it's just what you're saying. It's
Okay.
reducing the overall cumulative number of absences by 10%. So that's all of them. So that's the 21,000 that we're looking at.
Right.
So really, to do that, there are a lot of parameters, including changing our policy, looking at those subgroups, why are they absent, taking them to mediation, taking them to court, meeting with parents, creating positive incentives for students that are here. So those are all the steps that are outlined in this.
Yeah, I saw that. I guess I meant, are you looking at the students as different, not just, you know what I mean, like the kids who are missing 1 or 2 a quarter more than they should have? Like, are you kind of gonna come up with plans for this group, and, you know what I mean, like the kids who are missing, you know, there's some kids who have to miss because of phones or whatever, so you take those out.
But
I'm
they
talking
would be-
about then
right,
there's-
they
there's-
would
then
be
there's
excused.
the extremes, and
Yeah.
there's just.
Well, we talked earlier about the credit recovery and the home instruction. That's a
Right.
group, right there. That's a
Right,
group that doesn't want to
exactly.
be in school, so that would be approached in one way. The
Good.
students that think they can take June off because they get 20 days, that's another group.
Okay.
So yes, they are gonna be looked
And
at.
the kids that are just like the ones that maybe just are encouraged at home, there are different reasons. I mean,
Right.
I guess I'm wondering, like, are you gonna study the reasons why kids don't come to school too? It's really just a question.
I mean, as
So I'm
much data
curious.
as I can gather, you're gonna get as well, but I think, you know, we're doing so many things to change this practice and this really mantra of, I don't have to come to school because I get 20 days. You know, we're changing that to, you know, if you're out, there has to be a substantial reason why, otherwise you're truant. So, yes, just really changing the overall tone of absenteeism.
Yeah, and it's more of a positive. It goes towards your goal of life, you know, if you skip now, you know, it's just, I guess I'm thinking that way as well.
And the bigger picture is they should wanna be here. And
Yeah,
that's something
they
that
should
we're gonna
wanna be,
work
and we
on
wanna-
as a teaching
yes.
staff and as an
Right.
administrative team, having them want to be here.
That's what I was thinking.
That's an environment
Thank
we
you.
need created.
So that was it.
Engagement.
Yes.
Yep.
Pat, did you have something?
I was gonna wait to the end, but I just wanna thank the presenters tonight. Karen, thank you for the HIB, great score, it's gone up. Gina, great PowerPoint, NutriServe, like they've left already, thank you. And our construction update, wow. Oh, it was refreshing, thank you.
Yes, because I know that Brian is, I don't blame him, he's been here all day, since very early this morning. So I do want to thank him. I especially want to point out the amazing cooperation that I see between the different entities, because that is just, to me, incredible. And yes, Gina, Anthony, thank you. Karen, thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, then let's move on to our residents forum. This is on agenda items, so if you would like to speak, please come up, give your name, your address, etc. We shall listen. Hi, Jamie.
Hello. All right, so I guess it's not directly on the agenda, but because it was discussed, I believe it is. So as far as the students leaving the campus during the day for lunch, I understand that that's been like forever. That's something that's just like normal. I think it's absolutely atrocious. It's absolutely beyond belief that a student, number one, can come here where they're under the responsibility. I understand they're 18, 17, whatever, it doesn't matter. They come here and they should be under the umbrella and protection of this school. And now they're out on the road during that school day is appalling to me, to be honest with you. And my next, on top of that, and we go back to the attendance. I'm wondering if how many children or students, whatever, go out to lunch and don't come back? Like, what, is there something kept on that? Like, you can picture them out there, you'd say going, I'm not going back today. And I just think that's something that should be, I mean, my high school days obviously were a little while ago, but we never were able to leave the campus. If we left the campus, we were suspended. That was it. I mean, it seems like a massive liability. So, but that's what I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. Anybody else? Oh, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, moving on to
See you
committee
Thursday.
reports. Mrs. Chambers, would you please take over instructional?
Sure. We met as a board of the whole this evening, or a little while ago. On behalf of the superintendent, we present the following recommendations. Item A1 through A10 under instructional committee report.
We have a second.
Second?
Any discussion?
Just 10, the athletic schedule, it was noted that we're trying to have 2 home football games, and then I'm sure you'll keep us posted
Yes.
as far as location and how that
Mhm.
hopefully can work out.
Yes.
Under item 8, I would just like to sincerely thank the Ramsey family for recognizing this district where Mrs. Ramsey was a board member for a very long time.
This will be for next year, correct? For the graduating class for next year, this scholarship?
This year? The 2018-19.
18-19,
Oh, okay.
next spring,
Next.
graduation.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mrs. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mrs. Paklakua?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mrs. McVeigh, could you please take care of
Certainly.
personnel?
The personnel, we met as a committee of the whole as well, and with the recommendation of the superintendent, I would like to present items B1 through B16.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? Okay. Mrs. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mrs. Paklakua?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ernst?
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried.
Moving on to operations, Mr. Williams.
Operations, we have met as a committee as a whole, and based upon the recommendation of the business administrator and superintendent, items C1 through 3.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say I'm very happy pleased to see the information technology pilot program. I think that's a great idea. I think it's something that, you know, the technology is evolving so quickly for us to be aligned with our sending districts. I think is a huge step forward. And I'm hopeful that our lease purchase, the money that we invest in our technology will align with some of the audit requirements. So I was happy to see that.
Very happy to see the audit and to see the project.
Yep.
Thank you.
And item number 3, exhibit 12, I did send a couple of questions that I believe maybe some wording needs to be looked at.
No, it was accurate. I read it over again. So it's basically that all districts are sharing their services together. So Pinelands has the certified media specialist.
Correct.
Little Egg and Tuckerton does not, but it doesn't mean that we can't also, Little Egg and Tuckerton can't share things back. So if you read it, it's just, it's a true shared agreement where not one person is doing all the work.
Understood what it says. In one area, it's semantics. In one area, it says the specialist is being provided by Little Egg and Tuckerton, but that's okay. I understand the meaning of it. Just the wording was a little off to me.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mrs. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper? Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mrs. Paklakua?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Under D, report of the board secretary or finances, Karen?
Yes, so the board met earlier today, and with the recommendation of the business administrator and superintendent, I present items D1 through
11.
11.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so was 11 just added?
Yes.
Today?
Yeah.
Yes. It was discussed with the board members that are on the construction committee when it initially happened.
Yeah.
But we wanted to make sure we memorialized it in writing on a board agenda. These items were stored in bathrooms in the junior high that were not in use for about 10 years.
So that's why I guess they just turned up. Because we just found them.
Yes.
The bathroom's
Need them
ready.
all this time?
As we did the tours to reopen all of the bathrooms in the junior high, because we're gonna have such a capacity of students here, we saw them and decided that we should throw them out because they were of no use anymore.
They haven't been used in 10 years. What was the purpose? And using bathrooms for storage
It's crazy.
of junk is ridiculous. But it was discussed and it was asked that we get a true count and have it placed on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then just with item 9, the school funding formula, could either you, Dr. Nicola, or Steve, and maybe give a little background to what the purpose of that for, what we're trying to accomplish?
Okay, I'll jump in and
Or-
fill in
yeah.
the blanks. We were both at the same meeting. I guess to kind of put it in plain language, we weren't happy with the fact that the state gave us and they took it away with the state funding. While we suffered a significant loss, our friends up in Toms River, Bricktown, Jackson suffered even a bigger loss. So collectively, all the districts are going, actually all Ocean County districts lost money, or most of them did, are collectively passing this resolution and moving along to Trent to say, not a good idea. Let's stick with the formula and pay attention to the entire formula, not just the enrollment side of things. Because there's a lot more complexities to, and we learn through these meetings, than just your enrollment counts times a certain amount or a certain figure. How that figure is derived is almost more important than what the enrollment figures are.
So we're asking that our communities, that the state support our communities to do reevaluations and reassessments?
Of the formula.
Oh,
Of the formula, because
Okay.
also, with a shortened version of a long explanation, the fair funding formula isn't fair. It's really based on the wealth of your community, and how they determine that does not exemplify our students. So that's why the resolution's on here.
I was reading it as reevaluation and reassessment, like your property tax reassessment. Oh, wait, what is this?
Of the
Okay,
formula and how
gotcha.
they're calculating it.
Okay.
And is it because all the districts doing it, where it says over the 3,500 students?
Yeah, what is that section about? We have low spending per pupil in the state for districts over 3,500 students. How does that relate to Pinelands?
Or is it because the blanket statement's being made on all
Yeah,
schools?
we're keeping consistent with our colleagues in the other districts. The biggest problem is the wealth calculations. To kind of give you a real world example, one of the things that we're driven home during our meetings was Bricktown is considered one of the 10 wealthiest districts in the state. Yeah, they do have some wealthy areas. I think we can all pretty much assume that I would classify Brick as one of the 10 wealthiest, and I would kind of factor in Bergen County and some of the properties that are up there. And I could rattle off 10 districts that I know are much more wealthy than Brick. It's just the way that they compute it, and the fact that in some cases they don't consider commercial value in wealth. They do it based on per capita income and real estate property. That's kind of the gist of that, to send up, reevaluate the formula. We all don't like it, so it's kind of more of a powers and numbers we want to stick together.
But we're a district of less than 3,500 students. It says Highlands Regional Board of Ed. Right. Low spending in districts over 3,500 students.
It's really a blanket statement that the resolution that they came up with, and it's just if you're a school district that falls into this area, you don't necessarily have to have over 3,500 students. It's really that when they did the calculation in the state, those are the ones that are most affected. But the overall calculation of how they're coming up with our funding is not accurate. For example, they'll take, a lot of our, 48% of our population are senior citizens and a lot of them come from North Jersey where they had a high income and they have a lot of wealth and they retire and move here. They pay cash for their homes, so it looks like we have a lot of wealth in our community. But almost 50% of our students are free and reduced lunch. So one does not equate to the other.
So essentially, the purpose of this is just sending this back to the state.
To
and the governor
reevaluate their
and asking
formula.
to
The wealth
reevaluate the
calculator.
funding
Yes,
formula.
yes.
And all schools affected by this are basically putting out the same blanket
Same thing.
statement.
Little Lake Harbor did the
Okay.
same one 2 weeks ago.
Okay, all right, got it.
Thank you.
I have a question on number 8. Advanced Placement Registration Services, the exhibit. And we're giving permission for this person with the initials there to, I guess, handle all the testing purchases. Is that somebody in the district? Or is that somebody that works for?
And Karen Kenny's here too, if we have any other questions, but what this was explained to me was this is for us to go into an agreement with the company that's going to provide the AP testing.
Okay.
Which I think this is a renewal?
Yeah,
Didn't
so
we
it's
do
full
this for the first time last year?
Yeah.
So last year, a lot of the different, like our school play, our yearbook, things are all online services.
Right.
So it's the same type of idea. That's where the registration is provided for our parents to go online and register via that.
So TR stands for total registration? Gotcha, okay. It didn't sound like a person. Who is this?
Who's TR?
Yeah, and then ask for a signature. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Mrs. Chambers?
Yes, with 2 exceptions. Item 3, bills list.
No, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
Bill number 18-02177. I'm going to vote no. We've had this discussion, so I just don't feel that this is appropriate. And I am going to abstain on item 7. Everything else would be yes.
Ms. Sandoval?
Yes to everything except abstaining on 2 and 3.
Mrs. McBeth?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard-Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, excluding item number 3 on the bills list, PO number 18-02177 is a no.
Mrs. Ernst?
Yes on everything except item number 7, I will vote no. And on the bills list, item 1802177 is a no.
Motion's carried.
All right then, moving on to residents forum, general topics. Anybody like to speak with us? No?
Seeing no one?
You want to speak with us, no? Alrighty then, loving that. I am going to do the board forum because the board will be going back into executive session. So to sum this up for the evening, I'll begin with Mr. Williams. Do you have anything you would like to add?
I would just like to thank everyone for their attendance. It's getting close to coming back to school, so thank everyone and see you again next month. That is it. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Mrs.
I'm
McVeigh?
good, nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Yeah, I'll second that. Enjoy the rest of your summer. I would like if we could get maybe diary for review towards the end of next year, our food services company. I think we need to take another look at them. I know at this point we have what we have for next year, but I don't know when we're due for a renewal of that. I believe that was a multi-year agreement that we had with them. I think we should step back and take
We have
another
some
look.
ideas.
I agree with
To
you.
revisit that.
We need to look at that.
That's all. Enjoy your summer.
Kim?
Enjoy your summer, thanks for coming. That's it.
Christie.
Ditto.
Mrs. Chambers.
Yeah, Karen, thanks for bringing that up. I concur with you that I think we need to take a look at that. I'd like to thank Cooper Levinson for the ethics training that they gave us last week. Will and Amy did an excellent job. I think it was very informative. So if they're watching this evening, thank you very much. Kelly, thank you for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you being here. It's nice to see you again. Maybe we'll get to see you again sometime. So, and what you shared with us earlier was very helpful. So thank you very much. Everyone have a nice evening. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
And could I just add?
Sure.
Sorry, a thank you to Mr. Kaburki, our board member, who could not be here, but thank you to him and his family for the donation.
Yes. I have a few things. I won't bore the audience with my wanting information from my board members. But we are going to talk about the training session and a date, and we are going to talk about whether you think our little picnic idea is a good idea. No moaning. I want to thank everybody for coming, but I have to say that I guess I was at a meeting in the district office, and Brian and I went into Melissa's office, and the cornerstone was there. And I was just...
The what?
The cornerstone.
So you actually saw it?
Yes,
Oh,
it's
wow.
sitting there, it's a big
What is the
block.
cornerstone?
Well, it had 1979 when the school, and it was put in
Awesome.
amidst the brick. And I was really moved to see it, okay, because I know some of you were students who were there, but some of us were here as teachers then.
That's right.
There is a hole in the back that's been cemented over. There is something in it. We just don't know what.
Is it the time capsule?
So at some point in time, I really believe we have to have a discussion. Do we risk opening it and the whole cornerstone breaking?
Should leave it.
Or do we just leave
Does
it
it have a date?
and put
There's
it
no
back
history
in?
on the,
You
like, the
could
date?
probably save the faceplate.
I don't know.
There's a picture in the first yearbook of them putting it in.
Yeah, so
That's cool.
it's
Yeah,
just
isn't it?
something, it was very moving to see it, but it was sitting there and it was just a nice thing. Again, I just want
Put it
to,
back. I agree, and I'd like to add another one.
It's too soon.
For this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
yeah, adding something I think would be great,
Go
like
next
from
to
our
it, right,
current,
yeah.
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 you know, our current school, but,
Maybe a second
anyway,
one. Yes. I think a second
Yeah.
one.
a second one, renovated in. Again, I want to thank everybody for their cooperation, you know, the staff, the administration. Sometimes I think things are moving so smoothly and so easily that I kind of go, okay, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate everything that is occurring, the cooperation that is occurring, and I am really looking forward to a great school year.
Moving forward.
So, thank you very much. And now I need a motion to go into executive.
For?
No action will be taken.
We're still on negotiations.
Negotiations.
Negotiations, no action will be taken. I'm gonna assume half an hour?
10
Wrap
minutes.
this up?
Yes.
Okay, half an hour.
10 minutes.
Thank you. Tommy, no problem.
Second.
Aye.
All right, while everybody's settling,
Good night.
I have